and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to an interactive Manchester United live news show. We're going to have a discussion in the chat about things, but I do want to get into the news. Lots of interesting reports coming out on Joao Neves, some from reliable sources, some less reliable sources saying things like a deal is really close, which we will get into. Lots of interesting reports on Joao Neves. That would be a fantastic signing, but I'm not 100% sure if he's someone we'd maybe prioritise considering the whole needs of the squads, the centre-back, the right wing, the striker situation. But I think there's a lot of reason to be excited as a Man United fan, which you might be saying, you're mad. Do you see in the football we've played the last few months? Boring. I know football is painful to watch, but I do feel quite excited for next season. Maybe I'm going to sit here and regret this, because I always sort of get excited ahead of the summer transfer window to be disappointed. But I do think that, I don't know, maybe I'm a fool. But with the Dan Ashworth, Omar Barada, I have a feeling this summer's going to be different. And I have a feeling we're going to get the right kind of players to some of the Branthwaites, the Elises, maybe a Joao Neves. And I'm really, really like who we're linked to. And I really, really like Dan Ashworth, Omar Barada, who we're bringing in. And I think I want to be different. I want to be positive. I don't want to be whining about, oh, Ten Hag might go, De Gea might come in. I'm bored. Like we talk about that every show. I think there's lots of things to be positive about, and I've got some news, and I've got some Joao Neves news, and we've got some other news on ins and outs. I think it's exciting. Fabrizio Romano has also dropped a big story confirming that one Manchester United player will leave the club, depending on if we can sell him. I think there's 11 players that Man United are open to leaving. Reportedly, Ineos have made a decision on certain players. We will get into that. So please, before anything, do hit that like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new. We're going to start by talking about the Joao Neves news. Then we're going to talk about the player that is leaving, according to Fabrizio Romano, and the other players reportedly that will be up for sale. And then we're going to talk, of course, about sort of Cooper Miners news, some general news, Lenny Euro being linked to United. Then we'll talk a little bit about maybe City, Liverpool, linking it to Man United, Liverpool next weekend. Get your thoughts in as well. But as Alex said, Ineos have a lot to prove. I'm taking a wait and to see the approach from now. 100%. I'm excited ahead of this summer. I like who they're bringing. I like what their real approach is. But actions speak louder than words. What I'm hearing I like, but I need to see it. I need to see action. I'm not going to make a judgment on Ineos in a year's time. If we're not doing well in a year's time, I'm saying Ineos are rubbish. I know it's a long-term project. There's a lot to do. I'm going to be judging them by the process. Do I see improvement? Do I see the right direction being taken as well? There is reports that Elise is a done deal as well. I might talk about that in tomorrow's video, because I'm going to speak to someone I know who gives me a little bit of information here and there tomorrow, and just ask if he knows anything about Elise, because he was the one that said De Zerbi is reportedly the favourite to replace Ten Hag. He's the one that told me we're interested in Pavard, and 2 days later, Fabrizio Romano confirmed that. I will speak to him about the Elise news, but there's a lot of strong links to Elise, and I wouldn't be surprised. We know he's a Man United fan. We know that Ineos want him. We will talk about that later as well. But I feel good. Kai says, I feel better once the transfer window starts. I think we have to get stuff done early. Yeah. The thing is, I feel positive. I feel like, you know what? The football isn't great right now. I think we can get 6th place, which isn't great, but, you know, the other team's better than us. That's the truth of the matter. I think we could get 6th place. I think we can have a big clear out. I think we could bring players in. I think Ten Hag potentially could be back to given time. And I do think, generally, I don't feel too bad. Maybe I'm being over positive, but I do feel like we've got some amazing young players. Garnacho, Maino, Højlund, fantastic players. I'm really happy with Delo. I think Martinez will stay fit most of next season. I think Bruno Fernandes, I still think I know he's not been great this season, but I think there's a phenomenal player in there if we can get the best out of that. I think Rashford could become good next season. I don't know why, but I feel like next season's going to be a good season. And maybe I'm deluded because I've got to judge until the transfer window, everything's gone on. Look, we might be slow in the transfer window, we might do some bad deals, and I might be negative. But I feel like this transfer approach, you know, looks like United want to get some good deals done, the right kind of deals done quickly. But actions speak louder than the words. I'd like to be proved wrong, but I don't see Ineos buying Neves. Now, I don't see us buying Joao Neves. I see Joao Neves as a 2025 signing. I think 2024 is going to be 200 million spent. 200 million spent, maybe, because I'm assuming we're going to make 100 million sales. It's going to be about 200 million spent across 5 players at around 40 to 50 million each. And then 2025 might be where you get 1 or 2 big signings in. That's the way I see it, 100%. But let's dive into the news. Let's dive into the information. Let's dive into the reports, because you were here for the news. And I don't know. I wanted to do a different show where I feel a little bit excited. I just like the players we've been linked to, and nothing's happened. but there is a lot of credible reports saying we're going to get Elise. I really like the Dan Ashworth, the Omar Barada links. I like the players that we're linked to, and I feel like I wanted Qatar, and I'll be honest with you, I wanted Qatar, I want the full sale. I don't like that the Glazers are here, full sale only, and hopefully the Glazers do eventually go. But I do feel like it's a slow process, but I feel like we might be taking the right approach. But actions speak louder than words. But going into the news, Fabrizio Romano said this: Manchester United are interested in Benfica wonder kid Joao Neves. Other Premier League clubs have shown interest in the 19-year-old, and Benfica have set the asking price at 120 million euros. So when you see 120 million euros, I'll be honest, I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think if Joao Neves was 70, 80 million, maybe they'd push for that. I don't see Ineos spending more than 80 million on one individual position, especially after the comments Ineos have made, especially after what we know in the sense of Ineos have been saying we need to be doing those sort of 30 to 60 million signings that are aged sort of 20 to 25 that can come in their prime. Omar Varad is very strict on budgeting, and I think Manchester United sort of need to address 3 or 4 positions realistically. Manchester United need to address 4 or 5 positions realistically and spread maybe, 200 million net spend across those positions. So I don't see Ineos doing anything like crazy like that. But I think if there's a deal to be done, it could be done. I could see City getting Neves, unfortunately. They could do with a young CM, and I agree. Watch Neves go to Real and they sell Camavinga. I think he could go better than United. He's very expensive, but he would be special. Now, James Nursery says something interesting, and he is no Fabrizio Romano, but he said that Ratcliffe looks set to approve a record-breaking Manchester United offer for Benfica midfielder Joao Neves this summer. Neves has a 102 million release clause, and United see him as a priority target. Man City also interested. Realistically, Man City are a brilliant team that have a hole in midfield. Manchester City got 100 million to spend on a midfielder. Manchester United are a team that needs 2 defenders, 2 midfielders, 2 wingers, a striker, and full-back depth. So I don't think we can spend 100 million on one position. Now, James Nursery is saying that Ratcliffe's set to approve this and 100 million bish bash bosh record-breaking Man United deal. I'm going to be honest. James Nursery is not David Ornstein. James Nursery is not Fabrizio Romano. James Nursery, look, if you're right, I'll apologise to you and I'll say, look, mate, we should respect this James Nursery guy that was telling us this in March. I didn't take that with a pinch of salt. I mean, I would take that with a big handful of salt, more than a pinch, to be honest. But we are interested in Joao Neves. I think if Joao Neves stays at Benfica, we will go for him in 2025. I don't know if we're going to go for him in 2024, but there are a lot of credible journalists saying that Ineos really like this guy, and we do want a midfielder. It was also said that Manchester United are looking to sign Joao Neves from Benfica. The 19-year-old midfielder Neves is seen as a very exciting talent. Has already made 3 senior appearances. We also know he gets on well with Bruno Fernandes, and maybe that can be a boost for us there. Hope Neves doesn't go Man City. He would be a monster. James Garner played better than our midfielders yesterday. I tell you what, we could have done with James Garner as well. If we get Neves, at least in a few more players in the transfer window, would be brilliant if we had enough money in the bank. Do you know what would be amazing? Elise, guaranteeing that Elise stays fit. Joao Neves, someone like Max Weaver, 2 midfielders. We need a physical profile in midfield. Someone that can be left back depth because Malacia and Shaw are gone. Branthwaite, Todibo, then a striker like Tell that can play across the front 3 or Xerxes, and then we sell literally like Anthony Sancho, Donny, Greenwood, Mejbri, McTominay, Ericsson, and we do that will be amazing, but realistically it ain't FIFA. That's probably not going to happen. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Joao Neves. I thought every day at MUFC summed this up perfectly. If you wonder why I'm a big fan of Joao Neves, I'm going to give you a little bit of insight on the guy, and then I want to get into the next story about who's leaving. But it was said that Joao Neves' ability to aggressively push up the pitch forces the Benfica line higher and pushes the opponent deeper. Basically, very suited to Ten Hag ball, very suited to transitional ball. Basically brings a lot of things that we are missing. Again, 19, again, expensive. Again, I don't know if it's going to happen despite his interest, but very good. He's consistently available, the recycler of the side, whilst also being the controller from deep and starter of attacks. Temperament's top, still a teen, superb. Him and Kobbie Mainoo, man. Wow. Like, if they reach their ceiling, special midfield. Don't know how well they play together due to lack of physicality, but him and Kobbie Mainoo, man. The technical ability, like, from Fred to Kobbie Mainoo and Joao Neves, the technical ability differences would be mad. Now, talking of Fred, putting some respect on Fred's name, though, he's been fantastic at Fenerbahce, and while I get moving on Fred because he had 1 year left on his contract, he was aging and we needed to get money for him, I think there's times this season when we really could have done with Fred's legs and energy in midfield as well. Ghana, I'd take up a Scott Amrabat or Ericsson this season. Never agreed with a sale. 100%. I was fuming when we sold Ghana. If we'd have sold him for 30 million, I'd have said, fair enough, take the money. But the Ghana money just went on Anthony, didn't it? Like, it didn't even go anywhere. So, yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you on that. I'd have taken Ghana over all three of those players. I wasn't happy when we sold Ghana because we needed a DM. Obviously, we signed Casemiro, but he was still older, and Ghana was the long-term DM. He was so good at Forest. I wish we kept Ghana. I said we should sell Scott McTominay while we can get 30, 40 million for him and keep Ghana. And while I actually think that Scott McTominay has been good this season in terms of his importance as a super sub, he's not good enough to start for United because he's got too many limitations. He's a great outlet off the bench. He's a great goal scorer. He causes problems. He's not good enough to be a regular starter because he's got too many limitations, Scott McTominay, whereas someone like, of course, Ericsson and Amrabat just don't have the legs to play. I would have taken Ghana 100% as well. 6 pace is probably as good as we can hope to achieve. We really need to cut our squad wages. Do you know what? I do want to get into the news about the outs and the ins. I do want to talk more about Joao Neves, but I think Spurs and Villa are a much better side than us. And I think that Spurs and Villa will finish above us and we'll get 4th and 5th. But I want to show you something here quickly. Can you see this? So let me zoom in a little bit here. So this is the table. As things stand, Spurs have a game in hand. Let's assume Spurs win their game in hand. We will be 8 points. 8 points off the top 5. And top 5 gets you Champions League, potentially. We'd be 8 with poor goal difference. So, with poor goal difference. So you could argue 9. We could argue 9 points. 3 wins, 3 losses with 10 games to go. That is a big gap, okay, when you look at it. But could we catch Villa? Could we catch Spurs? Villa have got John McGinn sent off, so he's going to miss 3 games. They're in Europe, so they're going to have a lot of games. And they're missing Kamara, who was one of the best players. Douglas Luiz gets all the hype, but Kamara's been better. Looking at Aston Villa, they've got West Ham, which will be a difficult game. West Ham are 7th or 8th. They've got Wolves, which will be a difficult game. Like Wolves and West Ham are both in the top 10, both difficult games, which we won. But Villa could drop, without McGinn and Kamara, Villa could drop points in those games. Assuming they beat Ajax as well, they would have games in between. They've got Manchester City. Brentford, I'd assume they'd win, but they've got Manchester City and Arsenal still to play. Bournemouth, I'd assume they win. Chelsea, I'd assume they win. Well, actually, Chelsea can still be a difficult game. Brighton, it's a very difficult game. Liverpool, Brighton. Like Villa have got some incredibly difficult games, but I'll show you this. Now, look, Tottenham are normally quite good against the big teams, and Tottenham are level ahead of us. I expect Tottenham to win their next 4 games. Bish, bash, bosh, win those next 4. Newcastle, they're getting a lot of key players back from injury, difficult game. Newcastle, City, Arsenal, Liverpool, 4 games in a row. Tottenham could easily go on a poor spell here and potentially recatch them. Then they've got 2 easy games to finish the season, potentially there. I actually think we've got an easier run than Tottenham and Villa, but I don't think we'll catch them. We don't have the quality. But Brentford, we should win. Chelsea, we dominated them at home. Liverpool, look, win, loss, win. I think Newcastle seem to outplay us whenever we play them lately, but we can beat Newcastle. But they opened up a draw, beat Burnley, beat Palace, Arsenal lose, Brighton we can win. I think we could. I think other than Arsenal, Liverpool, we can win all our remaining games. So, and you think potentially there's an opportunity for maybe us to close in on 5th if one of these teams falls off. But again, I don't think it will happen. I think 6th place is realistically the best we can achieve, but it'd be nice to do better as well. Where's Malacia? I mean, I watched this video actually, and someone was like, maybe Malacia's in prison and United covering it up because he's not even been on social media. He's injured. His surgery's gone wrong. No one knows where he is. No one's heard anything. To be honest, I think he is injured and surgery's gone wrong. But if I found out United were hiding something from us and something else had happened and he wasn't injured this whole time, I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest. Like, I'm not even going to lie to you. As well, financial-wise, we need Europa. 6th should get us Europa League unless someone won the FA Cup and all the English teams got knocked out of the Champions League. As well, our squad isn't C already anyway. We will likely get dumped out again. Europa could be used to integrate new signings. And you know what? I don't like the Europa. I don't mind the Europa League. Man United should not be in the Europa League. Manchester United should not be in the Europa League. We should be a Champions League team. But if we finish 6th and we're in the Europa, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because realistically, the squad will not be ready for the Champions League. The Europa League gives us a bit more ability to rest and rotate and try other players, play young players. I think the situation we're at in the rebuild, we are not ready for the Champions League. As much as the Champions League will give us the financial stuff and the pool to attract bigger players, we don't need to attract big name players to the club. We're not looking for 1 or 2 signings to make us Premier League champions. We're looking at 5 or 6 signings to lift the level of the squad. Mats Wiefer, Branthwaite, Todibo. Xerxes, Elise, they don't need Champions League football. They just need a club that they feel like can go and develop at, and that's what we need. And Europa League, we can rest more. We can bring in maybe someone like Shea Lacey, Harry Amas. We can bring in some of the young players in those games against those kind of clubs that you can't pronounce the name. I think I'm okay with being in the Europa League, and people will say, "Oh, your standards are so low. Your standards are so low." Well, I just know where we're at. I'm being realistic. We're not going to do anything in the Champions League next season. It's an intense competition. The Europa League is something that, one, we can seriously win, because I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know if we'll finish top 4 next season. I feel positive that Ineos are going to maybe go with this transfer window with the right approach and hopefully get signings done early. Like they've got Omar Brada, Bish Bash Bush done. They've got Dan Ashworth basically done. I have a feeling that Ineos have an ambitious plan this summer, but that doesn't necessarily mean we get top 4 next season, because Liverpool, Manchester City and Arsenal are absolutely incredible. We are 3 seasons off them. Unless something massive happens because Klopp leaves and they fall, or City get their 115 charges, which they probably will avoid. I don't see us catching them. Tottenham, I think, are in a really good place with their rebuild and Ange Postecoglou. I think their second summer, they bring in his Bergwood as well. I think Tottenham are going to be really good next season. I think Chelsea will be better next season. I think Villa will be better next season. I think Newcastle will have a good summer, be better next season. There's no guarantee we get top 4 next season. We're in Europa League. We're in Europa League. We've got a path to be in the Champions League, and there's a better opportunity for a trophy there. So maybe people will think I'm crazy, but I would be, for the most part, okay with being in Europa League next season, considering how the season's gone. If you'd have said to me at the start of the season, we're going to finish 6th and be in the Europa League, I'd have been fuming. But looking at the season, looking at realistically, looking at how the season's gone, Europa League 6th place, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world as well. The United team lacks heart, I agree. A day's been good, got down the pub, watched the Liverpool City game there, had a nice roast as well. It's the new format of the Champions League, and there's going to be loads more games in the Champions League as well, which I think we'd struggle with as well. Rafael Leao and Rooney Barge, he could be good for our squad. I'm not the biggest fan of Leao. I think he's good, but I think he's going to be one of those where we're going to have to spend 90 million on the winger to bring him in, when Nico Williams and Elise are under 50 million. Well, Nico Williams is 42 million, Elise is 50 million. I want a 40, 50 million winger. I don't want to be spending 90 million on a winger. That could be the next Sancho or Anthony. As good as Leao is, I don't want him to be the next Sancho. That's what I mean. Maybe that's just me. Going back to Joao Neves, going back to the news, going back to the outs, going back to the ins. It was said, this is what I said on Joao Neves, if you want to know who Joao Neves is, and then I want to get into the other news. He's 19, he's a midfielder, he plays in a dual pivot for Benfica. He's more the advanced player in the pivot, and he's represented Portugal already at age 19. He's played with Bruno, he's very good. I'd say he's best box-to-box player, but plays in the pivot, can play anywhere in midfield, can cover mass amounts of ground, very good in build-up. Got similar qualities to Frankie de Jong, similar qualities to Kobbie Mainoo, special player. Great in build-up. The only thing is, I think him and Kobbie Mainoo, when pivot together, would lack physicality. Him, Kobbie Mainoo, Bruno Fernandes, midfield 3 is going to lack physicality. That would be a big worry there. And I think we do need a Mats Wiefer, Amadou Onana type profile. Doesn't really have any outstanding weaknesses. He is an all-round player. He's a great passer. He's press resistant. He wins duels, and he's got the technical quality we miss. Joao Neves would be a great addition as well. Please don't go get Joao Neves another talent gone to waste. Well, that's the worry. We spend a lot of money on one player and we don't get the most out of him. That's something we like to do. Just a little bit of insight on Joao Neves as well, what he's won. Baller. Anyway, continuing on, let's talk about the news. This is in the title of the video. Let's get into this. So, first story is that a Manchester United scout will watch Atalanta midfielder and Cooper Miners versus Juventus today. Cooper Miners been linked with him in the past. DM does the job. You look at Endo, wasn't the most fancy DM signing. He's gone to Liverpool as immense, put Rodri in the mud today. Cooper Miners could be a decent option if Casemiro goes to Saudi. We need someone with the legs. We need a DM. But interestingly, Fabrizio Romano said that Mason Greenwood is expected to leave Manchester United on a permanent transfer this summer. Other reliable sources have been saying for ages that there's no decision made on Greenwood. Lots of reliable sources are coming out saying that Ineos want to sell Greenwood this summer. Blah 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 blah. If Greenwood, I think they have decided that Greenwood will go, but that depends on the bids. There's a possibility Greenwood stays because we don't get a bid for him and people don't pay the money that we want for him or take on his wages. But I think that Greenwood will go. The reason I think that Greenwood will go is because we're looking at Elise, making contact with Elise. We're making contact with strikers. We've already got a plan for strikers / right wing. I think that he's been very good at Getafe. but I think there's players that won't be comfortable with him returning. That could cause an issue in the dressing room. We know that there's members of staff that kicked up a fuss about when Murta decided that Greenwood should come back, and we know there was a lot of controversy. I think Ineos won't want to risk that, but most importantly, I think the main reason that Ineos will look to sell Greenwood is they're thinking, okay, like this is one of our sellable assets. Most players at Man United, no one wants. Most players at United are dead, they're poor. No one wants half a squad. Okay, a lot of teams will want Greenwood out there because his ceiling is incredibly high. And when it's controversial to bring him back, when we're in a bit of an FFP scenario and we've got a player that could give us £40 million pure FFP profit, and if we sell him, that means that there's no backlash and there's no issues, particularly when the player himself, reportedly, one source says doesn't want to play for Man United again because he's worried about returning to England because of, the stick he's going to get from the stadium. I think, to be fair, I wouldn't be surprised if Ineos have decided to sell Greenwood. Now, I think a decision won't be made till the end of the season, but I wouldn't be surprised if Ineos said, look, this is someone we can seriously sell for pure FFP profit. It would be controversial bringing them back. We want to avoid the drama. We want to avoid the mess because John Murta got a lot of stick. We want to focus on other things. 40 million profit. Player wants to leave. Bosh. I wouldn't be surprised if he went 1 year left on his contract, 40 million, pure FFP profit, invest that elsewhere. I think that he'll go. I think there's a chance he returns because he's a very good player. He's on a very good loan. We need a centre forward. We need a right winger. But I do think because he's an academy player that's open to leaving, because of pure FFP profit, because he's one of the sellable assets and we need the money, and Atletico Madrid are particularly interested in him, I think that he will go as well. Player sales will be key. We tend to overestimate our potential sales going into every summer. And you spot on, Alex. Man United summer transfer window in terms of who we buy, and I'll be honest with you, Man United might want Joao Neves. They might want Elise. They might want Branthwaite. They might want Todibo. But the only guarantee that we get all of the players we want is if we sell well. There was one report saying that Manchester United hope to get 40 million for Anthony. If one team wants to give us 40 million for Anthony, thank you very much. Don't think we will. Look, in an ideal world, you get 40 million for Sancho, 40 million for Anthony, 40 million for Greenwood, 120 million quid, 40 million for McTominay, 160 million quid. Boom. Brilliant. Fantastic. Eriksen, Casemiro, Maguire, Lindelof, they're all raising some money. In an ideal world, we sell well, we sell like Chelsea, we sell like 10 players and we make like 200 million quid. Bosh. Possible, but not at Manchester United. Not possible. So I think you're right. I think we could make like well over 100 million in sales, but it's Man United. It's our players. It's our high wages. Even our players that were free. No one wanted Jesse Lingard for ages. No one wants David De Gea for ages, and they're free. Paul Pogba's without a club. Paul Pogba, Jesse Lingard, and David De Gea have been out without a club with most of the season. Jesse Lingard's gone to South Korea now. Eric Bailly got kicked out of his club. People don't want Man United players, even when they're free. That's another thing. Do we sell the players? So I think Alex is absolutely spot on. There's a lot of players out there, and if we sell well, we can buy better. But it's actually how can we sell those players? I think we can be able to sell McTominay quite well because he's on low wages and he's scored goals and he's actually had an okay season. I think Mason Greenwood we could easily sell to Spain because of, again, he might want to go. Oh, we've frozen. I think McTominay can be sold. Mason Greenwood can be sold. I think Lindelof will be easy to sell because he's on lower wages. I think there are players that we can sell. Sancho will be a difficult one to sell unless his loan at Dortmund picks up. Scored a good goal. Hopefully that gives Sancho some confidence. Anthony will be difficult to sell. I think the players, Casemiro will have options from Saudi. Varane will leave on a free, I think, unfortunately. But I do think we've got players that are easy to sell, but I do look at players like Anthony and go, that's difficult. Donny, do we just let him go for free? There's a lot of players at United. I think even players like Pellistri might go, and I think we should be able to get money for Pellistri. But yeah, you do look at it and go, Eriksen could be a difficult one to sell as well. Maguire and Scott, we had 60 million for them both last summer. Yeah, like we are able to sell people, but it's like, will those players leave, take the wage cut as well? We might make money. Yeah, I think we can get 30 to 40 million from Saudi for Casemiro, although he's been poor this season as well. Todibo and Theo Hernandez must next season, or we're not serious. Well, Todibo would be fantastic. I think left back, I would like us to go for maybe a young left back that isn't like a big name as well. Nico Williams would be absolutely brilliant. And as you talk about Brandon Williams, we should be able to sell Brandon Williams. See, Brandon Williams has just had so many injury troubles where I do feel sorry for that a little bit as well. Donny still has a year left in his contract, which means maybe we can get 5 million for him. Yeah, I feel sorry for Donny. I think his lack of game time over the years has meant that he's not got the energy to play as much as he used to. In terms of other news, in terms of other reports, there was this story which I thought was interesting. Not that I think it will happen, but we'll share this on the screen here. Manchester United are hoping to land 18-year-old French defence back Lenny Euro from Lille, who could pay 41 million to get the deal done. If we can get Lenny Euro for 41 million, I think that would be an absolute fantastic deal. Brandon's on, yeah, apparently Brandon Williams, up until Trent signed his new contract last year, was on the same kind of money as Trent, which is ridiculous. But yeah, Lenny Euro, man. Wow. Look, I don't think this will happen. It's not the best source in the world. But 41 million for Lenny Euro would be absolutely insane as well. Absolutely insane. I think he's a top player. And I'd love him. Lenny Euro, Joao Neves, 2 players I'd love at United. I like that we're linked to these players. I like that we're looking at these players. Realistically, I see them ending up at Real Madrid. I do. I think there'll be 200 million combined almost, and they end up at Real Madrid. Same with players like Wirtz. Wirtz, a fantastic player as well. Musiala, fantastic player. Just don't see them happening as well. Don't see them happening. But yeah, fantastic players. Let me just read this. Interesting. So just interesting comment there. I didn't want to read that out because I thought it would be controversial. I wouldn't mind Boniface at United. Not sure he's worth 40 mil. I think striker-wise, we need someone that's going to be... I don't think we should spend more than 40 million on a striker when we've got Rasmus Højlund to lead the line. I think we need... For me, I either want a young striker that's going to do a job around the 30 million price tag, or I want a striker that can play across the front three. Like, I don't mind just spending 50 million on a striker if it's someone that can play left wing, right wing, and someone that can play with Højlund. I don't want us to spend 50 million on a striker for him to sit on the bench and only play when Højlund doesn't play. If you can play across the front three, absolutely fine. And you can play with Højlund, and you can play Højlund when he doesn't play great. Xerxes reportedly 35 million. That's probably who I'd go with. Tell if he leaves Bayern Munich because he can play across the front three, I would be all over it, and that would be around 50 million. Sesko, I do like 40 million release clause as well. Potentially, yeah. I think I don't really want to spend more than 40 million on a striker as well. Benica and I can't say his name. Reinders, is it? We're good for Milan today, but they are good. I don't watch a lot of Milan at the moment, but I've heard very good things about them. Haven't watched much Serie A this season. I should watch a bit more Serie A this season because they've got gems as well. I'm convinced we should go for another young 9 like Sesko. At least you can sell one down the road if needed. Yeah, I feel like, I guess you're thinking long-term sellable assets. If we do go for maybe an older striker that's 20 million, that's got experience that we can rely on, I'm not going to be too fussed. I want us to be signing mostly players aged 20 to 26, but because we've got this great young striker, the one position I wouldn't be too bothered if we went a little bit older is striker as well. We need a striker like Martial Jesus as backup. Yeah, well, Martial hasn't got the legs. I think Xerxes, Sesko would be someone I like. I do like Gyökeres of Sporting. I really like Jimenez of Feyenoord, but I think they want to be the primary strikers. I don't know. They'd have a big battle with Højlund. We need another left back. Luke Shaw, Malacia lets down the season. Yeah, we do need another left back. We've been linked to some young left backs, and I think nearer the summer I will do a video. I'm going to do a video. I have plans in about May time. I'd say give it a month, sort of late April, May time, just before the transfer window opens. And once the season's over, really looking at players, probably May time to do like top 5 left backs Man United should sign, top 5 DMs United should sign. I'll do a series like top 5 centre backs, top 5 left backs, top 5 right wingers. I'll do stuff like that nearer the time when we'll talk about options. I think that could be quite good content. So do subscribe for that as well. Solanke and Tony are experienced, but they're going to, because they're English, they'll be like 60, 70 million. And I think, we've got Højlund. Let's spend 30, 40 million on a striker because we don't need to spend 70 million on 2 strikers when we need a right wing, centre back, the full back. Do you get my point? Best getting top young players to fight it out, no more short-term fixes, which I do agree with, to be fair. I think if we do get an experienced striker in that's 15 million a good value for money, I'm not going to complain too much, but every other position has to be top young players. And I would rather go for someone like Xerxes or Tel or Sesko than like someone on loan that's 30. I don't want anyone over 30. If it's to get like a 27-year-old striker, that's good to give Højlund competition, fine. Like if we'd have got Taremi in January, I wouldn't have had an issue with it. But if you'd have said Taremi or Marcus Leonardo in January, I would have taken Marcus Leonardo over Taremi. I do think the younger players are more appealing. Do a top 5 goalkeepers we can sign. I'm not going to do that because I think Onana has been very good the last couple of months. I think that people don't like Onana, and I think he was atrocious in the Champions League, and I thought he got off to a poor start. I don't think Onana's put a foot wrong in 2024. I think Onana's maybe had one bad game in the Premier League, maybe made 2 mistakes. But when you think that we've conceded the second most shots off the Sheffield United, of course he's going to make more mistakes than other keepers because he's got more to do. I don't think, he's not the David De Gea of shot stopping, but I think that Onana will be a good signing. And if you take away the Champions League, I think Onana's been good in the Premier League. I do. So I'm not, look, if Onana's poor next season, of course, get rid. But I've been happy with him. A lot of people giving Bruno Fernandes stick online all the time. Look, he's not been at his best. We know we can get more at Bruno, but I think that he's a fantastic player, Bruno. I think Bruno Fernandes is truly a world-class player. He's not shown it this season. And I wouldn't sell him. I wouldn't. I think Bruno's fantastic. I think he's being overplayed. I think that Ten Hag is using him wrong. He's instructing him wrong. Ten Hag isn't getting the most out of him. Yes, Bruno needs to do better in some games, but there's no doubt for me there's just this insane level of quality in Bruno Fernandes. I will sit here and I will back Bruno Fernandes. That for me, I'll admit, I'll say Bruno's had a bad game, Bruno's had a good game, but I will sit here and back Bruno Fernandes as being one of the best players in our squad. And people give me stick for that. I've had people say, I'm going to unsubscribe because you support Bruno Fernandes. What, are you 12? It's football. We're going to have different opinions. You're going to follow me and not my opinions. Like, sometimes you'll think I'm chatting shit, but that, like, it's just opinion based. But I will always be a Bruno fan, and I get stick for that. But I'm frustrated with Bruno because we're not getting the best out of him. And I think some of it's Bruno's fault, some of it's Ten Hag's fault. But I will always back that guy. I will always back that guy. I know a lot of people want him sold. People think he's our problem. We'd be worse team without Bruno, and I stick with that. Now, I want to dive into the Liverpool game. Just a few comments. Eric Ten Hag spoke about Liverpool next Sunday, and a few comments on the injury front. And he said, it's clear it's a great game for us, and we're looking forward to that game. But Liverpool will be the same, and we'll also look forward to it. For them, it's also an important game. We will plan it. We will prepare well, and we have to get ready for the game. It's a huge game, and it's derby game. We want to be in it. Liverpool destroyed City today. Like, honestly, Liverpool completely destroyed Manchester City today. I've not seen a side destroy Manchester City like that for a long time. Liverpool were incredible today. So I am very worried. But the positive is, look, Wan-Bissaka could be back, Maguire could be back, and Højlund could be back. Maguire, not that fussed about because Evans and Varane have been class, but Wan-Bissaka right back, Dalot left back, Varane and Evans. Look, for me, Lindelof off, Dalot can go full back, Wan-Bissaka right back, Dalot left back, Evans and Varane centre back. That back four I'm calm with. Perfectly calm with. Højlund striker to give us a focal point. Gosh, because you know what? We all play the most boring football ever versus Liverpool, but we're the only team that hasn't conceded at Anfield this season. So I'd be a lot more confident going into the Liverpool game with those players back. Mason Mount will be back after the international break. Ten Hag's confirmed that. Malacia and Shaw are basically out to the end of the season, and Lissandro Martinez is going to be back after the international break. We've got Shaw and we've got Mount back after the international break. Two key players. Malacia and Shaw are basically gone. Shaw might be back in May for like the last 3 games of the season. So make of that what you will. So I look at that as somewhat positive as well. We'd be worse without Bruno right now, but I'd like to see an efficient technical 10 compete with him. Yeah, I do think Bruno needs competition 100%. And I think one of the reasons Bruno's dropped off is because he's knackered and overplayed. No, if you think of his Portugal minutes and his Man United minutes, no outfield players played more minutes than Bruno the last 3 years. No outfield player played more minutes than Bruno in 2023. It's ridiculous how much he plays. Enzo Laffi could be a cheap partner for Neves. Yeah, I think with Joao Neves, as brilliant as he is, we might have to look at someone like Andre Fluminense or maybe a cheaper alternative. I think realistically, sell Eriksen, Amrabat, McTominay and Casemiro, bring in Weaver and bring in a technical player as well that can play. Bring in someone that can play as a 6 and an 8 hybrid that's physical, and then bring in someone that plays as a 6 as an 8 as a technical player in case something happens to Maino. That's what I think that can cover a lot of ground. Really want United fan Elise top player. Elise is a top player, and I think that is injury prone, but I think Elise is injury prone through bad management. Neto is generally injury prone. He does his hamstring a lot. Just a bit like other players. I think that Elise is injury prone through bad management as well. Paulo aggressive, but can't build up goals. I think they've looked a lot better in goals build up as well. Is Wan-Bissaka going to be up to sharpness for a potent attack like Paul? Completely misread that, but I know your point. That I was thinking that while saying that in my head. Like, Wan-Bissaka's back great, but Wan-Bissaka's not looked sharp this season even when fit. I do wonder what's his match sharpness going to be like. Wan-Bissaka played 4 minutes of football between August and Christmas last year, and then came back looking really sharp because Dalot was injured. So I'm kind of hoping it's going to be a little bit like that. But you never know as well. Do you think we need another number 10 if Mount can stay fit? If Mount could stay fit, I don't think too much, because if Mount, the way I see it is Eriksen out, Casemiro out, McTominay out, and Rabat out. DM role, we can have Maino and Weaver. Box to box role, we've got Maino, and then maybe someone like a Joao Neves, Andre, Enzo Laffi type of signing, and then 10, you've got Bruno and Mount. And then that is sort of the way I see it. I think we might have to keep one of McTominay, or maybe McTominay around when you think of actually what we got, because I think we probably need 3 midfielders if we sell all 4. But that's the way I look at it, depending on fitness. But I think next season you look at more like a Wirtz, Musiala. For me, because Bruno will be getting on a bit, for me, I look at more 2 deeper midfielders this season. Next season, we've hopefully Mount stays fit and he can play with Bruno and competition for Bruno. But if there's not something working with Mount, or if it's not quite working with Bruno, Wirtz, Musiala, that I think the way I see it is this season is sort of 2 players that can play in the pivot in midfield, 2 centre-backs, a left-back at least, or at least a full-back for depth, a winger, a striker. Next season, we're looking at maybe another winger, maybe another full-back, big midfield signing, potentially someone that's going to be real competition for Bruno. That's how I see it. I think Onana will be good. I'm not actually worried about the long-term future of the goalkeeper and stuff as well. Big up everybody in the chat. Please do hit that like button. Please do subscribe down below if you're new. I think Pedro Neto is amazing. Look, if Man United and Ineos want to go out and sign Pedro Neto, I'm not going to complain. I think that Pedro Neto is amazing. I think he's a brilliant player, but I think he's more injury prone than Elise, because he consistently gets injured throughout the season. Elise got injured and then got rushed back and made the injury worse. Elise's actually didn't have any injury problems last season. So I think with Neto, he's a bit more injury prone than Elise, which might sound hypocritical because Neto's played more this season. But actually, deeper diving into it, Neto's brilliant. Neto is a very similar profile to Garnacho. The one thing, Elise is more of a natural ball crosser. Neto is very similar profile to Garnacho and Rashford in terms of he's direct. And Neto does have the most assists. But believe it or not, in terms of creativity, Elise is more of a naturally creative player, a little bit different to what we have. I'd be happy. Look, Elise, Neto, Nico Williams. I would not say no to any of them. I think they're all fantastic. But yeah, I like Gibbs White. I wouldn't say, again, no to it, but he's not in my top 5. Yeah. Amrabat is a loan return. Ericsson will get next to nothing. Scott can at least generate a decent fee. And that's why I think we have to sell Scott. I think the one that would be most useful next season would be Scott, or you could argue Casemiro, but Scott and Casemiro, the Ineos we could get money for. So I feel like they're the one we got to sell as well. We need a clinical passer in midfield. Where's our next De Bruyne? Well, De Bruyne got hooked off today. He got hooked off today. Look, I think Bruno's an amazing player. I love Bruno. I think he's an amazing player, but we're not seeing it this season, are we? And I get that frustration. Look, people, with funds tight, we have to be careful risking potentially injury-prone players, which I agree with. And that's why Nico Williams, if he's got a 42 million release clause, as much as I love and rate Elise, and I think Elise is probably better, I think Nico Williams is my standout, if I really had to be honest. There's nothing really between Nico Williams and Elise for me, but Nico Williams could be less riskier. But then you also say he's not played in the Premier League. It's debatable, isn't it? It's debatable as well. Ten Hag said he made a mistake sending Reguilon back. Yeah, but apparently that wasn't Ten Hag's choice. Ten Hag was told, look, Luke Shaw and Malacia will be back by the end of January. We don't have the finances to keep Reguilon here. Reguilon's got to go. Apparently that's what the board said to Ten Hag. I just think, why don't we keep Joao Fernandes and recall him from loan? Do you think Toby Collier will step up to the grade? I'm not sure. I mean, he's been England captain throughout the youth ranks, one of England's finest, been good for the academy. I think he's a decent player. I think he is going to be more of a McTominay-esque player. I don't know. Like that's nothing wrong with it. I think he's someone that could have a very good Premier League career. Could be a McTominay. Could be more of a Dan Fletcher. I don't see him being the next Paul Scholes. I think that's going to be more like Kobbie Mainoo, but I do think he could be a really good player for us. But it's too early to know. I think he's a mature player, but I don't know how far he'll go. But I think he's got a decent player there as well. Yeah, a patient technical baller in mid is going to have to come from the market. Only have Kobbie Mainoo. Yeah, I think this is what we need. We need a Mats Wiefer, Amadou Onana, physical player that's tall, that can cover a lot of ground, that can play as 6 players and 8. And then we also need a technical player that can mirror what Mainoo does. So whether that's Andre Fluminense, because we can't afford Joao Neves, maybe that's an Enzo Laffi. You know, I would have really liked Bergvall, who's going to Spurs. We almost signed Bergvall 2 years ago. Really technically good. We need a technically good box-to-box, and we need a physical box-to-box. I think we need 2 midfielders. I think we could get a good, technically good young box-to-box for 20 million. I think we can look and see if we can get a gem. That might be a risk. And then maybe get someone a bit more established like Amadou Onana or Wiefer for that role. But I think we need 2 midfielders. I think we need 2 centre-backs. I think we need a winger. I think we need a striker. And I think we need a young left-back because of injuries, which is a shame because we had Alvaro there and we sold him as well. And the reason I've gone with Wiefer for my midfielder is because I think he has the technical qualities. I think Amadou Onana is younger, has the legs, is maybe a better dual winner. But I think Weaver's got those better qualities on the ball, which we lack. Florian Wirtz is fantastic, but I don't think it will happen. Willy Camboire could be a great centre-back as well. I do like him as well. There's a guy at Atlanta who's pretty good, which Scavani, you thinking of? I don't know. Anyway, people, Todibo has to come to United because Ineos. Look, I think the reason Nice pulled the plug on Todibo to Spurs is because they're saving him for United. I think, to be honest, if I had to guess what we did in the transfer window right now, I'd say we signed Todibo. We go for Branthwaite. I don't know if we sign him, but he goes to a big Premier League club. I think Todibo Elise are two that would happen. I think a number 6 is one that will happen. I think a push for Branthwaite is one that happen, and then a striker. That's what I think we'll do. Anyway, please hit the like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new. I'm going to end the live stream here. Big up everyone watching. Oh, frozen. See you next time. Bye.